I won't lie. It speaks to the subject of commitment. It tells you that when you are committed to something, it doesn't matter whether you are doing it where someone is watching or no one is watching. For as long as you are committed to doing something and give it your all, truth is, one way or the other, there will be someone that is watching, and you'll be recognized and rewarded for that. And that's just what happened. And I'm grateful for the commitment that I put into the craft and the profession, and the recognition of this nature is a great way to start the year, man.
Now, this recognition comes from Africa PR Week, which highlights professionals shaping narratives across the continent. What do you believe set your work apart to earn this honor?
Well, I think it goes back to what I've alluded to earlier. It's I think what really set me apart is the overall commitment to the craft of the profession itself and the consistency to the craft. I wouldn't really say it's a specific work or specific achievement or specific but rather it's the overall commitment that I've been committed to the craft over the years and the consistency in itself. I think that's what really set me apart and with the recognition.
Now, communications work is often behind the scenes. What is some of the unseen or misunderstood work that goes into protecting and also building a brand like MTC?
You see, some of the roles or the work that we do, most of the time,
Community. Thank you.
it's not something that is in your face, it's not something that is easy for someone to really notice. For instance, subjects of, for instance, relationship building, subject of crisis management, preparing for a crisis management. And if I may, to maybe passion, for instance, relationship building is one of the key responsibility that one has to really carry in the profession of communications. And peer profession really spend, time, cultivating relationship with, for instance, journalists, influencers, stakeholders. And these actually take years, 'cause these connections, those connections that really take years to develop and rely on the trust and mutual respect. But how you do that is not something that is in your face. It's not something that someone is easily can easily see. For instance, I can also mention, like I mentioned earlier, crisis managed preparedness.
Mm.
The PR teams, really must be prepared for a crisis by developing detailed response plans in advance and preparing the spokesperson of the company, for instance, that's going to be speaking on behalf of the company. Because, for instance, in many cases, when a crisis hits, you either identify someone who in an executive position that's going to be speaking on behalf of the company, and this person sometimes is prepared by the communication people. Yes, prepared by the communication team, and when they go out there on television, on radio, and they're speaking so well and eloquently and defending and controlling the narrative and controlling the crisis, no one really sees that this person is working or has been prepared by the comms team. You understand? These things are not seen at all. You know,
Mm.
sometimes it's even event planning. You organize whether it's a press event or whether it's a product launch. Coordinating logistics. With a guest list. And follow-ups. These things take significant effort. And attention to details. But people don't really know these things.
Mm.
Sometimes it's even speeches. You know, some people don't even know that someone can say, "Oh, that was a great speech," but this work, there was something that was put together, not by a team, by a communications team. So all in all, I would say most of the work really it's not something that is in your face, not something that you will really see that it's a communication team or the PR. No, because it's always behind the scene, and that's why when a recognition like this comes to anyone that is in the profession of communications and PR, it's something that one should embrace and really say, thanks for the recognition. And that's a position where I am right now, saying thank you for the recognition.
Now, in today's digital and highly connected world, What are some of the biggest communication challenges facing corporates in Namibia and across Africa?
I'm going to speak, not to say I'm confining it to the Namibian space or to the African space. I'm just going to say generally in the profession, whether in Africa, in 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 in, in, in Namibia, or maybe I should bring it down to Namibia. But I've noticed that things like um, fragmented audience, keeping up with a diverse, social platforms and really tailoring content for specific audiences. It can be tricky, can be a bit challenging because now you have to understand these are your audience, different audience. They are found on different platforms. They are on social media, on Twitter, on TikTok, and whatnot. And you have to create content for each and every platform. It's a nice challenge, but for us in the PR space, for any challenge that we find ourselves in or facing, we always have a way around it. Some of the challenges is that it's the constant information overload, the constant flow of information. There's a lot of information that is shared on a daily basis, on a minute or per hour, and you really have to make sure that you find your way to make sure that your information is not consumed and sink in the overload of information that is shared on a daily. So you're gonna find the ways and tactics to say, how am I gonna make my information stand out and reach my audience, because audience are presented with hundreds of information on a daily basis. So you gotta be creative, you gotta be innovative. You say, what is the best way? That's not where you're forced to think without a box to make sure that your message is not consumed and really get lost in the high volume of information shared on the daily. You have things like the digital divide in the country also, also in Africa. It's also a thing that really limits your yeah. So I was talking about the digital divide. Sometimes that factor alone it limits your digital outreach communication strategy because that divide now you realize that your outreach communication strategy is probably just getting to be concentrated in areas or the urban areas where people are digital literate, and on the other side
Yeah.
you have to find on another strategy of communication. But as I've indicated, all these challenges for us, there is always a way to go around it. But if I'm to say the last one on that, is that I've noticed that in some of the institutions or organizations, the PR and comms people in those organizations are not given the liberty to do their jobs freely. Sometimes the processes and the procedures set in those institutions, they just stifles and frustrates the PR people, the communication people in those institutions. For instance, you as a communication person, you want to have that fluent, easygoing, working relationship with the journalist.
Mm.
Uh, when the journalist sends you questions, and you are given processing and procedures that are a bit tricky, man, to follow before you respond. And you realize that because of those processes that you have to follow, now the response, you craft a response, and then now that response need to go through 5 steps or 5 offices for approval. By the time the last office approves that response, the journalist has already moved on, the deadline is gone, and then they'll be like, but you are a comms person, but you are not taking that journalist seriously, man. I sent you questions, it takes 5 or 7 or 2 weeks before you respond.
Yeah.
Those some of those procedures sometimes maybe there should be a way of how it should be ironed out, and this is something that I have noticed in when I engage other fellow peers in other institutions. But I'm glad in the institution where I am, the leadership and the senior people really understand the importance of having that sound relationship with the media. So you don't really get those long stifling, frustrating processes and procedures.
Mm. And
Yeah.
just finally, to young Namibians interested in public relations, media, or communications, what skills should they start developing right now?
Hey, that's a nice one. And I think first you need to, especially considering the world that we are headed to, or that we are already in now. I think first you need to get yourself AI literate, uh, get to understand how artificial intelligence works, and get to know how to cultivate and maintaining those sound relationships. Because some of these things, it's not things that, for instance, AI can do, but yourself, you must have those skills of really just cultivating and maintaining sound, relationship with your stakeholders. You gotta know, get yourself, uh, know how to tell or use multimedia to tell a story. Get to know how to tell a story, whether it's through traditional media, social media, or any latest current platform medium, and not just stick to the traditional way of doing things back then of telling story. You gotta find yourself in a position where you know how to tell a story through multimedia. You gotta know how to do public speaking, because this still uh, it's not one area you can say I'm going to rely on AI to speak on my behalf. Sometimes you're required to stand up and go up on that stage or on that podium and really speak to the people, because as much as we digitalization and AI is the thing. There are just some things that need a human touch and the human element. So I'm going to say, know how to cultivate sound relationship. Get yourself AI literate. Uh, you gotta be able to know how to tell a story through multimedia. You gotta be learn on your public speaking, and of course there are some other qualities and skills that you will need that I have not mentioned here. But this, I would say, is the startup is to start working on. But obviously, there's still some more that you would want to know how to do yourself. Writing skills, but now writing it can be replaced by AI. That's why I said, get yourself how to know how to use the artificial intelligence and all that.